Hello, Mechwarriors, and welcome to the Mechbay, where we fix your mech and fix your game. What's going on, Mechwarriors? I'm your host, Josh. I've got my co-host, Lore Master Denim.
Howdy, howdy.
And Turkina's chosen son, Steve.
Hello.
And we are the Mechbay Podcast, your number one source for all things casual to competitive tabletop battletech. And today, the lawyers have advised me we have to talk about the contracts.
I just want to say that I am honestly and for real giddy about this subject. I am very excited about today's topic.
Me less so. It's very much like work.
It is, yeah. But I do it for fun, and you do it for, to keep people from yelling at you.
Oh, that doesn't work. I get yelled all the time.
I mean, this really does play into the I want to make my tabletop hobby my management project, hobby. And it's like, ooh, spreadsheets, love them. Ooh, I want to set up medical insurance funds for my Mechwarriors. Like, this is that episode. It's terrible, but that's this episode. But anyways, before we dig into the contracts and the fine print, we got some hobby news, hobby progress, games played, and upcoming events to talk about first. So let's just roll into some Battletech news. Not a whole lot since last time. We have Battletech Hounds at Bay, the Fortunes of War number 4 by Jeff Swift. That is out now. We talked about that last time. So it's out now, ready for eyes and, I was about to say ears, but it's not an audiobook. It's a paper book. And then, of course, like we talked about last time, Battletech Shrapnel issue number 18 with that poor Jade Falcon Hunchback 2C just getting shredded apart.
He's doing his best.
I was going to say, he's doing what a Hunchback 2C should be doing.
What is that?
What Josh likes to say, there for a good time, not a long time.
Correct. I need to start freehanding that on some mechs. Good time, not long time.
That's a lot of letters for freehanding.
We'll get into that. Steve, somehow you wrote down hobby progress first, so
yeah,
we go chronologically, so you have to go first.
That's fine with me. Really not a ton to report. I did a couple of practice games for Southern Assault, finalized my list for that, submitted that over for the initial bonus points because I submitted early. Did a little bit of painting. I've started painting the crabs for Crabback, which we'll talk about later. And I did continue painting some Free Worlds League mechs, but I'm not done with them yet. I'm working on a Hunchback, a Charger, and a Mangonel.
Do you have a favorite of the bunch?
Honestly, the Mangonel, so I will say the Charger is the new one out of the Mercenaries Kickstarter. It's a nice model. It's fun to paint. I don't know why I'm so taken with the Mangonel. It's a goofy looking thing, but it's real beefy. And if you put it in a sock, you could hurt someone real bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun to paint.
Even the plastic one.
There's a plastic. No, it's not a plastic Mangonel.
No, but if I'm saying it's big enough that.
Yes, it would still leave a welt. But this metal one, you could brain somebody with it. It's serious business. Josh, what about you?
Oh man, well I finally got around. I forgot. I'm going to be completely honest. I forgot that Fortress Miniatures and Games sold brushes, and I've been trying to get paint brushes for a while. I keep walking in stores, and I'm like, they got paint brushes, and the aisles are just clear out of the good ones. So on a whim, I was like, maybe Fortress has brushes, and what do you know, they do. They've got the Army Painter line. So I ordered the Psycho brush, which, if you don't know, is a 3.2 millimeter long brush for freehanding.
It's basically a nose hair on a stick, right?
It's less than a nose hair. My nose hairs are literally longer than the brush length of this. Steve's just contemplating. He's like, I did not need to know that information.
I made poor choices today. That's all right.
But yeah, so I ordered that, one of my basing ones, and what other one? An insane detail one. So I was like, I need a small brush, a smaller brush, and a base coating brush. That's all I need. I need 3 brushes to do 99% of my work. And I was like, yeah, we've only been dry brushing for the last year, so I have nothing else. And after freehanding the Federated Suns logos on some mechs, I was like, I need better tools for the better job. But Yeah.
That's exciting. New brushes are always exciting. New painting hobby tools are always exciting.
Oh, yeah. But of course, I couldn't. It feels wrong just ordering brushes. Like, that's not why we're here. So I did pick up 3 Hauberk battle armor, 1 Arbalist, and 1 Ajax Omni tank.
Nice.
I think Steve's like wondering what those are. Maybe.
I'm going to pretend to just nod along and look those up later.
So the Hauberk are essentially Intersphere Undine battle armor. Like,
Why? Do you really want to go underwater that bad, Josh?
So I don't think
he's there already. He might as well be able to move around.
Yeah. These don't go underwater technically. Like, they realize that's too complicated. We can't do that. So they do have L-arm. But the cool one is the Hauberk 2s, which have a medic armor because they killed all of the purifiers in New Avalon. So the Davians are like, slap this armor onto a battle armor. So they are assault-ish battle armor with a medic.
Gross.
Yeah. So they are the ultimate like long-range sniper heavy battle armor mech.
I don't think I like that.
No, you don't.
You can return things,
Nah. What else? The Arbalest is for my Nova Cats. It's like a Dark Age-ish fire support mech that's a light. Yeah, I think it's 2 ER mediums and 2 LRM 10s. So
okay.
Yeah. It's just always on the mulls that I'm looking at, and I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll just get it. I'm like, fine, okay. Add to cart. And then the Ajax Omni tank is the Davian Assault Omni tank. And it's got some cool variants. The coolest one being the triple rack 5 variant.
Oh. Well, that's certainly stronger than Grease.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there, if you roll well, it's 90 points of damage.
I haven't rolled that well even in the simulators, but it's one of those, like, when it spikes, it's going to feel real good. When it craps out, it's going to feel real bad. So, I'm going to put all my emotional eggs in this one Ajax Omni tank basket. But I did actually modify that to be the 3 rack 5 variant. Like, I took the snippers and cut off all the turrets and the SRM4 pod from the original model, and the Death Ray Designs weapon upgrade sprues. They have some Gatling gun little pieces, so I did those in an asymmetric pattern. So there's one that's long barreled, one that's medium barreled, and one that's short barreled. So it looks unique. It's not just 3 rack 5 barrels all next to each other. So
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Denim, how about you? Any progress?
Yeah, Southern Assault 4 is coming up, as you said, and I was about to submit my list. And then, of course, I realized I can't do that many of the same elementals, so I had to really start looking at it. I ended up, because it's what era and faction locked.
Well, yeah, you have to pick whatever era you want to be in.
I completely ended up changing my entire faction. So then I had to go back through all my mechs and see, well, which ones do I already have? Which ones are already painted? And so now I have a nice little pile of mechs that I just primered to finish painting up to look like the other ones. Because I cheat. I don't paint a whole new army every time. I don't have time for that. But
I don't have time for that.
I will fill in the holes with what I need now. So I've got four units I have to make sure to paint before Southern Assault. So yeah, I've been doing some hobby progress. Luckily, I didn't have to buy anything new. I had it all.
Well, I mean, you buy everything as it comes out anyway, so I'd be shocked if you didn't have something.
Well, I still don't have any of the Mercenaries stuff, so
that's not true. You have a Mercenaries box. You told us last time. You have a Mercenaries box.
I do have a Mercenaries box set. Yes. So if it was in that, you're correct, because people love me, and even though I don't have my stuff, somebody gave me the Mercenary box set, and somebody gave me the BattleTech Encounters dice set. Because I'm
the dice game or the set. The box, you mean? Yeah, the box.
I thought you already had that, because I thought you ran out to Best Buy, or not Best Buy, Barnes & Noble to grab one.
Yeah, but they didn't have it at the Barnes & Noble.
Okay. We talked about going out.
Well, I was gonna go, and then I'm just like, oh, look, it's not at this one, so
I'm not gonna try that hard.
No.
You get one chance, impulse buy.
So yeah, a little bit of progress, and a little bit more over the next couple weeks.
Awesome.
Nice. This was the acquiring. Next time we'll be painting. How about that?
Yeah, I primered, so that counts.
Yeah,
it's step 1.
Oh, I forgot. I have more Phalanx battle armor coming. I just didn't make the order because I already placed an order with Bobby, so someone else is picking them up. I have more Phalanx coming. They may be in town yet, but I don't have them in possession, so I don't know if that counts as hobby progress, but Phalanx battle armor are coming.
I like how the man is complaining about my Hauberk battle armor, and I'm like, Phalanx are just the same, but a different level of worst.
Yeah, but they're mine, so they're fine. They get a pass.
That does make a difference. That makes a huge difference.
I took
cool battle armor
Phalanx
for me, not for thee.
I took Phalanx to my first Southern Assault, so
Nice.
yeah, very fun. You taking the Battle Mech Taser ones?
I thought about it, but ultimately the answer is no.
It's free. The Taser is free.
I know the Taser's free, but it's one shot, and it feels kind of dirty using it.
You need
honestly.
a 10 up.
Look, I don't. Even still, it's like, oh yeah, now your mech shut down for a whole turn. Get bent. That feels terrible.
Yeah.
Tasers are not fun for people.
Yeah, no. I think we've talked on this. T-Simp, bad, die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got it on my Poseidon, and the Poseidon, like, it's a fun mech. It is not a great mech. But that's one of those things that even when it works, it needs it to work at least once just to survive.
Yeah.
Because when it doesn't, then you just screwed yourself even worse.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it's like they need like an alternate firing mode where it's like, don't use these rules. It's a PPC that does a weird damage.
Honestly, I'd be okay with that.
I think everyone would be.
A less focused PPC.
Ooh, a PPC shotgun.
Yeah, PPC with cluster rolls.
Ooh.
Ooh. Wait, this is just the Snubmos PPC from HBS Battletech.
We were getting there.
We're just recreating it. Yeah. Well, let's move on before we
birth some sort of abomination.
Yeah, I was going to say get the copyright lawyers in here. Games played. Steve, you once again wrote down first. What games
I just take notes as I do them.
I know. But I got a rat on you for doing your homework.
That's okay. I got 2 practice games for Southern Assault in. Both were very educational. I played a game with my buddy Kevin, who ran his Diamond Sharks. This game was perhaps one of the closest games of Alpha Strike I have ever played. I mean, I won't go into too much detail because we do have a ton to cover, but I'll explain how we did scoring in a hot minute. So he brought a Warhammer 2C, a Shadowhawk 2C, a Phoenix Hawk 2C, a Grendel, a Man-O-War, an Arctic Cheetah, the Viper / Black Python, that horrible airplane with legs. He brought a Phantom. He brought 2 Salamanders and some Gnome battle armor.
That's a
overall,
lot. That's a lot.
He had a lot of guys, and he played really well. We did the 3-point objective test. I always count the 3 objectives across the center line mission my go-to practice game mode, because you have to assault things and you have to hold things, you have to defend things, take things, and you have to be mobile to cover multiple objectives at a time. I think it's a pretty good test.
Is that why I've never won that one?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I always get duped. This is
a good test, Josh. I fail it every time.
No, it's terrible. Okay. This is a tip for all of you players at home. When you play the 3-point objective game in the middle of the line, right? You have 3 objectives evenly spaced across the middle of the map. Do not go for all 3 objectives. Just don't do it. If you take 2 objectives and hold 2 objectives, you'll win.
We learn this every fall. Every fall.
And I go for all 3 objectives every game. I don't know why. I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, but no one's going over there. I can just sneak a little guy. It's never fine. It's never, ever fine. Anyway, on to the recap. I'll just try to hit the major highlights. I did manage to kill that abomination of an airplane with legs in turn 2. And Heartbreaker, he immobilized one of my VTOLs that landed just outside of the contesting radius of the objective that it was flying around. So it didn't actually do anything the rest of the game, but it was there. Other exciting highlights is in the middle of turn 3, a lot of stuff started to die, right? I killed his Arctic Cheetah. I killed his Shadowhawk with a long shot from downtown with the Condor hover tank. That felt pretty fun. But what was most impressive is I managed to get a headshot with my blade from the rear on his gargoyle. And again, This is another instance of where gargoyles / man-o-wars just have magnets in their heads. I have never seen more headshots against units than gargoyles. I don't know why. Most of the time it's my gargoyles, but this time I got a headshot on somebody else's gargoyle, which was exciting. At the end of the game with Kevin, he had 2 points, I had 2 points, and this is where it gets a little bit wonky, right? If we'd been following strict time standards, we would have ended at turn 3, and I would have won. But we said, we'll just finish the game. It's a friendly game. We got a couple of beers. It's okay. So we continued to play a 4th game. He ended up killing all of my things to stop a contesting point, which means he got a 2nd point that turn. So we were tied on points. We looked at destruction to try to make a tiebreaker. I lost 263 battle value and I killed 246. So we were within 20 PV of each other. It was really very close. And if any one of these, random criticals hadn't gone through or any, literally anything, we had a couple of partial cover rulings that we just kind of flipped the coin on because we didn't think they were that big a deal. It mattered, right? He got a couple of back shots on a mangonel that I thought I'd move far enough away from his Grendel. It wasn't far enough away. He got back shots. I took like 4 damage that turn. The mangonel died. That would have been 26 PV. That would have swung at 20 points the other direction. This was, I think, the closest game. And what was nice about it is, Kevin was pretty easygoing. I feel like I was pretty easygoing. We weren't like, it was a practice game. We were trying to learn things, but having it get this close, we both felt that our lists were pretty on par with each other, and that felt pretty great. So very exciting, very close game. Thank you, Kevin, for putting up with the shenanigans that we had to deal with. My second game happened a week later with Gary, who's a buddy of mine, and he brought a Warhammer 2C, a Kingfisher, a Jade Phoenix, another Warhammer 2C, a Wraith, a Spectre. He brought the Greyhound, the Southern Assault 4 version of the Greyhound, so he did bring that. And he brought a Locust 6M, which moves 36 inches and has a TMM of 5. Yeah. This Locust was carrying I'm not going to say this right, the Fashish? However that's pronounced, the Fashi, the battle armor, because they're X-Mech and you can mount them to the 36-inch moving Locust. Good news, I killed the Greyhound on turn 1. That felt great. He ran it up to contest
that. Why?
Look, Josh, there was a point that belonged to me.
Great.
And the Greyhound got confused and thought that the Greyhound owned that point. I had to correct the Greyhound. There was a little bit of educational instruction there.
Bad dog. Bad.
Yeah, it died. It was not good. But Gary got his comeuppance there because first turn, this Locust zips. And I mean, it's moving 34 inches carrying battle armor. This sucker moved. I managed to land boxcars. I got a critical hit on the Locust. I'm like, yes. Best case, I kill it. Most likely option, I'm going to get a motive critical and bring this guy down to 20 inches or 16 inches, because you get motive, it's going to cut it in half. They're going 36, it's going to be 15 and change. It's like, all right, I'm going to cut your movement in half. I'll be able to track you down and kill you that way. That'll be great. I roll, and it was carrying battle armor, and I rolled a 6. So the critical hit the battle armor, which if you play Alpha Strike and know, Alpha Strike are immune to critical hits, or I'm sorry, battle armor immune to critical hits. And that made me very sad. Yeah. So we went from elated to, heartbroken.
A blade of armor for the win.
Right? I mean, it almost never works out that way, but when it works out real good. And then, of course, he got to laugh in my face as both of his Warhammers crit. He crit my Hunchback, and my Mangonel took a hit too. And then from there, it just turns into a knockdown, drag-out fight. At the end of the day, I did manage to get 3 objectives to his 2, and overall killed 250 of his battle value, and he killed 174 of mine. So Gary's list was a brutal force to be reckoned with, just a lot of real heavy hitters that when you're going for an objective base like that, it's really hard to get away from, 7 damage assaults. Because you can't, you have to go to the point. They're going to the same place and they will get in range of you and they will ruin your day. So 2 really great educational games. In game 2, the VTOL I brought really did a lot of work. I got a lot of back shots on that. So really got his point value back for me. But overall, good educational games. Had fun. Thanks, guys.
Nice.
Yeah, sounds like you had a fun time.
It was good. Josh, you play anything?
I did. I got technically 2 games. One of them's about this episode, so we won't get into that in this. So I got to play a game with Scott from scotsgameroom.com. P.S. They just put out a really excellent Alpha Strike battle report, and I've saved it, and I'm going to watch it later, and it looks really good. So,
I'm glad you say that. I almost spoiled it for you because I saw it earlier. It's good.
See, I can't watch the YouTube at work. That's the problem. My life would be so much better if I could. But anyway, so yeah, this was at scale 2 with no BSPs, essentially. So 7,000 BV. We did the objectives, like supply objectives, carry them back. Like they're on I have to defend them. He has to attack. He has to grab them, take them off the field. And I was like, okay, we roll up. I'm the defender. He's the attacker. He's got Ghost Bears. I'm taking my Davians for their first inaugural run. I have my Hammer Hands. I have a Battle Axe, a Griffin. I want to say 6R, the like super jumping one, like jump 9 or something. And then the Rack 5 Rifleman, like 2 Rack 5 Riflemen. Like,
yeah, that one also jumps too, as I recall.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hammer Hands is a 3.55. Battle Axe is a 4.64. And the Griffin is like 5.89. Yeah. We're going to go with that until someone fact checks me. Anyway, Scott had a Ghost Bears. He had a Kodiak, Dragonfly, Horndown, Stormcrow, and we both took a BS Battlefield support asset of 1 battle armor just to try them out. And yeah, that game was wild. My Battle Axe did not move the entire game, but it almost never missed with its, 4 ER mediums and 3 MML 7s. It was just like, all right, I need 10s. And it's like, all right, all weapons hit. And he's like, I don't know what to expect anymore with you, Josh. I'm just having a great time. I had the Hammer Hands with just regular AC 10s so I could roll up some precision ammo, which was great because jumping with improved jump jets, landing, and then only taking a +1 modifier was really nice. The problem was that mech could not hit. So like I think every other turn I hit one of the precision autocannons. The highlights of that game were, besides me losing, because all he needed to do was take 1 objective off the field to like outdo me, because I had to kill a mech to outdo him taking an objective, was my Griffin, which was the Super Griffin model. I have to point that out. Did a successful DFA on his Kodiak in a heavy woods from the exact distance away. So I jump, I land, I do like 15 points to his right arm and another spare damage to like his right torso. And I was like, how could I roll all that and not do anything to the head? But I did displace the Kodiak, and I did technically make it fall as well as me fall when I landed. The Rifleman got flanked by his Stormcrow and just got instantly deleted. I was not happy with his performance either. But I think the only other super highlight is last turn of the game. He can essentially get off the board next turn. There's nothing I can do to stop him. So I jump my Hammer Hands in front of his Kodiak. I'm like, cool, I'm going to try to do internal damage on you to force you to have worse repair rolls. I shoot him. I do a couple hits. I think I get internal on his right torso finally. He then uses his ERPBC and just headshots the Hammer Hands on the first roll. And I was like, gotta stop doing that. I do my skin in the teeth ejection. That man dies before he hits the ground. So, yeah. We'll see. That's a recurring theme tonight's episode. Do headshots need to be changed? Do we need to change that rule? Is that on the to-do list?
Headshots are perfect.
Denim.
I had a few games.
Yeah.
Since the last time. I believe while you were playing against Scott, I was teaching some new players how to play. I was doing one of my favorite missions from the Game of Armored Combat box set.
Ooh.
That was fun. It's the one where you've got the Battle Master doing a slow march across the field, across 2 maps.
It's so good.
Yeah, like a Wolverine a commando and a locust try to stop it. It is one of my favorites for teaching people how light, mediums, and assaults all work. It's great.
How do they work?
Yeah, exactly. How do they work? Headshot ended that game pretty fast. No, not fast. I was like 2 turns from getting off the map, and I got double tapped in the back of the head, so I got hit twice in the same turn.
When it rains, it really pours on the headshots.
Well, the Battle Master cockpit is so huge; like it's an easy target.
Not from the rear,
from anywhere. Thing's huge, but that was a lot of fun. While you and I were playing our second mission for the topic we're about to talk about, I was also playing the playtest for my campaign game. That one went super, super well. I had to buy a bunch of little plastic dinosaur minis for that, but that was a fun game. And when we do more campaign stuff, I'd like to talk about that more. But yeah, that was it. So like 3 games.
Yeah, we'll have a whole episode just devoted to like your campaign games. How about that?
I'd like that sometime. Yeah. There's just a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, it's too much for one episode. All right, let's get into some quick upcoming events. I say quick as I see the giant paragraph. All right, so we've got one all the way across the pond. I think that's how you say that one. We've got the Cardiff Battletech Open on October 19th at the Geek Retreat. And they are playing a modified BTCC 3-round 7K FedCom Civil War tournament. So you can get more info at the Battletech South Wales at gmail.com. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I saw it and I was like, okay, mechs and battle armor, Total Warfare, Battle Mech Manual rules. It's like, that's how we play. That's how we play. So if I was over there, if I had a passport, maybe, but maybe next time. All right. And coming in from Ontario, starting October 5th this weekend, and then the first Saturday of the month going onwards, the Giddy Goblin in Hanover, Ontario will be starting a Mercenaries drop-in campaign. So come join them in a casual campaign to build your house unit, clan force, or your mercenary company's reputation with glorious mech and combined arms combat. All experience levels are welcome. All right, and we've got Southern Assault apparently opened up a few more slots, and according
to what now, 130?
I can't even keep up with that anymore. Like at this point, it's beyond my ability to count on my fingers and toes. But apparently they're full again, so it's kind of just you have to get on the wait list and just literally wait for people to drop and have life events. Apparently lists were due yesterday for maximum sportsmanship points.
Yep.
Did you guys do that?
Oh, yeah. I got mine in.
Yep. My list has been submitted.
What?
Yep. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
What? No.
Yeah.
No.
Sportsman.
It's 2 points. And Bobby keeps talking about how it's really tight every year. You got to get every point you can.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember. I didn't get the podium because I was like 5 points away from podium. Like, ugh.
Yep.
And as somebody who helps Dustin out with vetting lists coming in for a tournament, I understand how nice it is when people get their lists in earlier than later.
Yeah, no, I don't know what that's like.
Josh, this is the best. When you submit early, you set it and you forget it. You're done. Your list is locked in.
Homework's due at 11:59 the night before.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Oh, God, no.
You're
Blake,
late.
help me.
You get to have dreams about it, stress dreams for the next 2 weeks until you finalize a list.
Yeah, no, I don't need that right now. But anyways, so get those lists in yesterday.
So speaking of Southern Assault, what's going on the day before, Steve?
Yes. We are gathering once again on November 1st for the age-old rivalry Crabs versus Hunchbacks, also known as Crabback 2024, third time's the charm. We'll be meeting at the open play time during setup. We all show up and help Bobby set up for Southern Assault. We set up all the tables. And then once all the work is done, Lord Carbon over at the MRC is under the impression that Hunchbacks are the superior 50-ton mech. I still advocate that the Crab is the pinnacle of evolution and is the finest mech ever created. Therefore, we have a grudge match, but we've started raising money for the Children's Miracle Network because, if we can convince people to throw money at a silly game, we might as well get them to do it for a good cause. So starting October 1st of 2024, we'll try to have it linked in the show notes here. We will open up the Extra Life charity link, and it should take you to the main page where you will see both Team Crab and Team Hunchback. You can select whichever team you choose and donate money to a good cause, helping out kids and the hospitals that they attend. Now, we have a little surprise. Last year, we had top hats and fancy pipes and monocles because everybody knows that Battletech is a gentleman's game.
Absolutely.
Only the classiest of individual plays Battletech, and we try to represent the hobby as such. But this year, we would like to reward the highest donor on each team. If you happen to be the highest donor on Team Crab, you will join me at the table. And if you were the highest donor on the Team Hunchback side, you will also join Carbon on his side of the table for an auxiliary game of Crabback. So we'll be playing our main 375 point battle value, and we'll have you two donors at an adjacent table, and you can help influence the outcome of Crabback 2024. I will take all of the help that I can get. I am 0 for 2. Third time's a charm. Crab's going to get it this year, baby. And if we can raise over $750, we will open up a second auxiliary table, allowing the second highest bidders to participate. So if you'd like to donate large sums of money and cannot be present, we will give that privilege to the next highest donor. But we do have a special surprise for you regardless. So last year we raised $1,075 for charity, which is just another feather in the cap of Battletech community, right? I mean, we're the best wargaming community to be a part of. And we'd like to see if we could raise more than that this year. Obviously, that is a huge undertaking. I mean, I think last year might have been a fluke, but hopefully you will all prove me wrong. So please join me for Crabback 2024 and help me put some dirty hunchbacks in the ground where they belong.
Selah.
All right, you can find the link to Crabback, the charity event at Southern Assault, in the description for this episode, and it'll also be on the Mechbay Podcast Discord, Facebook, and anywhere else that we think we can post it. Semi-related, I do want to give a shout out to Lulu on the Mechbay Podcast Discord, who did some wonderful Crab versus Hunchback propaganda art. And unfortunately, that's the only time we'll see a Crab defeating a Hunchback.
Ooh.
All right. Gauntlet's been thrown. Josh, you're no longer on my friends list. That's it.
You're dead to me.
Well, should we take a quick break and get on with the main subject?
Yeah, let's take a quick break and do that.
You know, it's hard work being a Mechwarrior, but it's important to me to be the best that I can. I don't go through all this to impress other people. I do it because I care about me, I care about my body and my health. Most importantly, I care about making it back to the dropship in one piece. That's why I would never use Necrosia. I've seen some of the other clanners who use it, and they seem to lose their senses and their ability to pilot. Let's face it, what goes in your body eventually shows up on the outside. The bottom line is, stay away from Necrosia, but do it because you care about yourself.
All right, and we are back. And today we're talking about the Mercenaries Kickstarter Boxset. And we touched on what's in the box like 2 episodes ago. Now we're talking about how to use the box. So this is actually for the people like our dear friend Steve here, who might be a primarily Alpha Strike player who's been practicing deep, like knee deep for Southern Assault. And unfortunately, Steve also works for a living, so he's tried cracking this open a couple of times. And Steve, how much do you know about the contracts, the assets, the support stuff?
So I have a passing knowledge of how the battlefield support work, but obviously I haven't used them yet, so a refresher would be ideal. I am also very excited to find out how we roll up a contract, because that's one of the things that my local tables have been asking about. And obviously this is a great way to do it. So I'd love to hear more about all of that.
In the box set, you don't roll up a contract. There just is a contract. But we'll get into that as well. But yeah, there's that's, you know what? That's not true. That is not true. It does actually mention that if you have been through this and you really enjoyed it, that you can fake a contract, and it does on page 25 kind of walk you through that. So there is a way to fake rolling up a contract, but it's not a real like table of things that you can roll up.
Sounds like we got 23 pages of stuff to get through before we get there, Denim.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But in a nutshell, the whole box set is just so much fun. It is what I imagined a game of BattleTech would be like after reading The Great Death Legion, because it feels like this is how it works in the BattleTech world.
This does feel like the natural culmination of all the things we've been doing, like a game of Armor Combat. All right, that's cool. This is like I'm running a mercenary campaign or whatever. But where's the campaign part? So
right, and then where's the combined arms part? That's in every single BattleTech book. They talk about the tanks, the infantry, the artillery, things like that. What's
left of them after the battle?
And sure, Total Warfare has all those rules, and they're really, really good, and they're really in depth. But not all of us want to read through all those rules. Not all of us want to sit down and play a 6-hour game. We've only got 2 hours to play instead. And the BSP vehicles and artillery and aerospace just makes it fit into a game of BattleTech without overpowering the vehicles. So we should probably start with that, right, Josh? We talk about some BSP vehicles.
What do we call them? BSP vehicles or BSAs?
Assets. They're called assets.
Yeah, BS assets. Battlefield support assets.
Yeah, BSP assets.
BASs.
Now I'm confused.
No. BSP is Battlefield Support
Point?
No, it's just Battlefield Support, BSP.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You have BSP points.
Yeah, no, this is ATM machine. It's terrible.
Assets.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Right. So it's an abstract way. It's an abstract way to add vehicles and aerospace and landmines and artillery into your game. So historically, when there's a really good BattleTech product out and they introduce vehicles, it ruins the game. I'm looking at you, Clicky Tech, that whole Dark Age Clicky Tech type stuff. Once the vehicles really got updated and people saw how awesome they were, you could go to a BattleTech tournament and not see any battle mechs, which is sad, but it's because battle mechs aren't as good as the vehicles according to those rules. They just aren't as efficient. Same thing happened when the card game got to its like 4th expansion. One of those was all about vehicles. Totally overpowered it. Nobody had any mechs in their BattleTech decks anymore. The BSPs, I think, really are aware of that, and they don't cross that line, which doesn't mean that the vehicles are horrible. They're just debuffed, but in the right ways.
They are the second characters instead of the main characters. Right.
So vehicles in the books are supposed to be less maneuverable because they're on wheels or tracks. They aren't as agile as a walking tank because the legs give them the agility. They give them the ability to turn faster, move through terrain better. And one of the ways that is portrayed is that vehicles always go first. So BSP asset at the beginning of the game, it doesn't matter if you won or lost initiative. All of your BSP assets are going to go before any of your mechs, just always. If your opponent also has assets, then whoever won initiative goes second. But it's still all of them. That you don't mix them into your forces, which means that a vehicle is really bad at getting behind an opponent. They're really bad at taking certain types of objectives, but they're really, really good at holding a point or defending a flank. Things that in the books, that's what the vehicles are there for. They're second line units, they're second tier units, they're fillers. They're really important because they can take a lot of damage sometimes. They can certainly give out a lot of damage. They are not pushovers.
Well, this has the secondary effect as well of preventing people from taking cheap vehicle units and using them as initiative sinks because they all have to move first.
Right. You cannot use these as initiative sinks by design.
Genius.
Yes. The other nice thing about it is that when you build your force, which we'll get into force building soon, you get a certain number of BSP of points, the battlefield support points. So you don't have to assign them when you build your force. You can assign them once you've seen what your mission is going to be. So it's basically, I have my mechs. This is my stable of mechs. These are the important guys. Now, what vehicles do I need to pull from our vehicle pool for this next mission?
Doesn't have to be just vehicles, though. That's the best part.
I was going to say it could be aerospace units as well. It can be landmines. It can be artillery. It can also be vehicles, and it can be a mix of all of those. But you get to look at the mission, and you get to decide, what are my auxiliary forces going to be? So they are customized for every battlefield.
And again, that's nice where you get to pick those after you see the mission to tailor them, right? If you're in a super mountainous map, you don't want to take a bunch of tanks. Right, yeah. And that's also super nice.
Yep. So I really like how they do all that sort of thing. I'm not going to go over every rule for it, but in a nutshell, you don't keep track of your vehicle's health. It takes damage, and if it takes enough damage, you roll at the end of the turn. You roll at the end of the entire turn to see if that is destroyed or not. The more damage you do to it, the lower that roll is. But if you don't make that roll, that vehicle is still alive. It's not immobile. It's not. It doesn't do any less damage, so it still does the same amount of damage. The only persistent effect is if it survives after taking damage, it is now easier to destroy the next turn. So that target number you have to roll at or above to destroy it is lower. So that's the only number that carries over.
Help me understand this. Walk me through this. We'll take a look at the Maxim hover transport card on page 4 there. So those of you at home can follow along. Where do I see its health? I see damage. I assume that's the damage that it does.
Correct. So that's the damage it does. It does 4 groups of 5 points of damage. So when it hits, you only roll once. But if it hits, you do 20 points of damage in groups of 5.
I'm not seeing a health box. Where is its health?
You're going to see a check. It's going to have the number under it is a 7. And under that box says threshold 5. Right?
What does it mean, Mason?
I'm about to go over that. But you see that, right? On there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see it.
So the threshold is how much damage it has to take to even be considered for being destroyed that turn. So if you do 1, 2, 3, or 4 points of damage to it, it's all armor. It doesn't care. It just doesn't care. Once you hit 5 points of damage, and that's all sources that turn. It can be explosion, artillery. It can be a mech shooting at it or something else kicking it. All of that damage for all of the entire turn from multiple sources is all added up and kept track of on the card. You just write it on there with a Sharpie, or not a Sharpie, but a dry erase marker. And as long as it's over 5, then you roll to check to see if it's destroyed at the end of the turn. That check is a 7. So if you roll a 7 or higher, that vehicle is destroyed. If you roll a 6 or lower, that vehicle is still alive and it's working just fine.
Now, if I do 10 damage to it, does that change the number? Because I've doubled the threshold?
But 11 does.
Okay, so you have to do more than the threshold.
Is 5.
Okay.
Yep. And then once you hit 11 points, that makes that check 1 less. And every 10 points after that. So 5 is the check, is a threshold check. Then 11, 21, 31, 41 all lower that check number by 1.
So there is a theoretical maximum for every vehicle, or a maximum.
If you do enough damage, then once you get
die.
that check down to a 2, it is just, you just blow it up. Like you don't even have to roll because you can't roll under a 2.
My dice luck would have you think I might.
Now, if say you did 11 points of damage to it, the check is now a 6. You roll a 5. Oh no, that vehicle is still alive, but that check is permanently 1 lower. So instead of starting off at 7, it starts off at 6. So every time it survives, it's just easier to kill in a subsequent turn.
Interesting. That's a neat way of doing it.
So they're not invincible, and you can still always technically get their 1 like medium laser lucky.
Right.
Yeah.
They're always considered to be moving at flank speed. So their skill does not care if they stood still or how many they moved. That skill is their base, and they don't add any of their movement to it, but they do add, the target's TMM to it. Their TMM is always whatever is printed on the card. It does not matter if they did not move. It does not matter if they moved a lot. Like for the Maxim, its TMM is a +3. No matter what it does, it is a +3 unless it is like spotting for indirect fire or using indirect fire. Then it cannot move, but that's a special rule. And all the vehicles have their own little special rules and stuff. So I don't need to get into that.
This feels a whole lot like Alpha Strike. Like this is this is as close to an Alpha Strike card as they could make it. It's got a TMM that doesn't change no matter how far you move. It's the range is rather than standard. It's standardized to the card. Skill is on the card, and it's just always that.
So it's all just one playing card sized little thing that you have to keep track of, and you don't have to remember how much damage it has taken in previous turns. The one thing about the TMM though that I did find interesting, that a lot of people miss, is that say it was not the hover transport, because hover transports can't go into woods at all. Say it is a tracked vehicle and it goes into light woods. It does not get its TMM plus the woods. It's either its TMM or the woods. So it only gets one source of TMM. It does not. They do not stack for assets. The other nice thing is that, like, the box set comes with some 3D models of the plastic vehicles, which are nice. But then it also comes with a bunch of tokens as well, and those tokens are really nice because you can have 2 vehicles in a hex. These vehicles are big. You can't fit 2 of the plastic minis in one hex, but you can pull out a token for it and stack the tokens underneath to show that there are 2 vehicles in there, or a vehicle is in the same hex as a mech, something like that. So you can use those tokens as multipliers. Which
just imagine people pushing little poker chip piles of support assets around a table.
Yeah. But I like those a lot. And then I know we've talked about the other assets, the not vehicle assets, it's assets and strikes. Yes. So those are all. So unlike the assets, you can also have battlefield support strikes, and those are the other cards, like the minefields, like the airstrikes, the bombings, the artillery. Those are all considered strikes. They also have an equivalent battle value number cost to them, just like the assets. So when you're about to start a mission, you can use whatever battlefield support points you have left over and buy a mix of them.
And they all come from the same pool of BSPs, right?
Correct. And we'll get into that again here soon, but basically everybody gets a pool of battlefield support points at the beginning, and those refresh every track. So they're not gone once you use them. You get them replenished after the mission that you go on.
So here's a question, Denim. If we look at a Maxim hover transport, shows me here that battlefield support cost is 23 for a standard one, not the veteran. Right. Does that mean that we now have a hard BV conversion rate to BSP points?
We do.
Ooh. Have you crunched the numbers?
It works out just fine.
It's 20.
I mean, are you asking me what it is? Yeah. It's 20 because it tells you in the book, and we'll go over that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That is one of the steps in the process that we will go through. But for those of you who don't care about spoilers, it's 20 to 1.
Fantastic. I know that's been a point of contention for a little while, trying to find out exactly how much BSP should be valued at. So now that we've got that, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. All right. Any questions about battlefield support assets or strikes while we're on this?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've looked through the book very lightly, but I know it comes with a couple vehicles. Have you tried any of these? What do you?
I have, and I like the vehicles.
What are your favorites? I mean, I knew you played a couple of games, but of all of them, did any of them stand out as like super interesting that you want to try or that you did run and have a good time with?
I haven't played enough to really get what my favorite absolute vehicles are, but I like a good strafing run. I like a good strafing run.
That's not a vehicle, Denim. That's
I know.
It's a strike.
I have
vehicle. I'm asking vehicles.
Specifically vehicle? Like it has to be like wheels or
tank, plane.
You know what?
A machine that goes
You
burr.
just said vehicle, but you just said his airstrike.
Yeah,
A
the
plane is a
plane- the
vehicle.
plane
a
is what I
plane
just
is a type
said.
of vehicle. No.
Yeah, so the bombing comes from a plane. It flies over and drops the bomb.
No, you're missing the point. Answer the question. You're being evasive. Hostile
Mobile
witness.
HQ. I like the mobile HQ a lot.
What does it do?
It gives you a +1 to your initiative.
Oh, well, that's a good thing to have. Yeah, take those.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh, Pete's. Follow-up question. What's your favorite strike, I guess, Mr. Plane Munitions?
For that, I like the Maxim hover tank that carries infantry.
Denim, you're going to give me a stroke. No, I mean, so you mentioned a strafing run?
I like the strafing runs. They do hit a line of, if you have a lot of assets and resources in a line on the other team, you can do a lot of damage spread out, especially if they happen to be in water, because any damage from a strike in the water hits the punch table automatically.
Right. It makes strafing real dangerous.
It does.
And what's nice about this list is that this is the same list that we see in the Alpha Strike rulebook for battlefield support.
Correct.
Points,
it's all
tables.
the same stuff.
It's just really interesting. I mean, looking at it, it's similar but different because it's obviously designed for Classic in this form. But we had a lot of people at the tournament that I ran take strafing runs. We allowed some BSPs. A lot of people took strafing runs because they were so good. But we learned something. In the back of the Alpha Strike book, it has templates for your light bombing and your heavy bomb, your long toms, right? And it's got a strafing run strip. But that strafing run is printed in the wrong form. It's not 2 inches wide.
No.
It's not accurate. It's not. And the worst part is we had some templates made and I sent it to the printer and they came out with exact replicas. If you put them in the back of the book, they line up perfect. They're great. But they're not right because they're not 2 inches wide.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you at home, look out for that. That's a little bit of a bummer. It says it's a 2 inch wide strip that goes, I think, 8 inches, I think is what it says.
Yeah,
but,
that's good. That's good to know.
Yeah. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you're going to print those pages out of the book and cut them out, it's a little bit short. Yeah. So here's your fun fact for the day. That's not so fun.
Josh, what's your favorite?
Oh, yeah. Josh, you're here too. What's your favorite vehicle?
I hate y'all so much. Well, I was going to say Mobile HQ because I'm the one who took it. And how many times did we roll initiative? And I
won initiative once. That whole
No, there was one specific turn. And how?
Oh, yeah. Because, the whole rule of Battletech, Steve, is if you need a 7, you're going to roll a 6. If you need a 6, you're going to roll a 5. Well, Josh kept doing that against my initiative roll. And I think we rolled 6 times where I rolled an 8, he rolled a 7, but the 7 plus 1 made it an 8. And then we did it again and again. So it was always different numbers, but he was always one lower than me. And the Mobile HQ always bumped it back up. And I think it was six rolls in a row where it was getting silly. Like,
Denim, have you considered killing the Mobile HQ?
It was hidden behind, not a hill, a mountain. It was hidden behind a mountain.
You took a strafing run. Why didn't you kill it with the strafing?
I did not take a strafing run this time.
No, he took a lot of vehicles from that one.
Yeah. I needed to because I was down to 1 mech. So I needed someone to scan these buildings for me.
I will say I do like how they gave. This is not exclusive to Mobile HQ. The Commander special rule gives you the +1 initiative, so there could be future assets come out and have that same ability. But I do like how it wasn't just +1 initiative. There were like 4 once per game you can use this, and the one I used was like you get to add 1 to your run MP, and I was like, that's like the number of times I needed just 1 extra turn. It's like I'll pay BSPs for that once, and then I get +1 initiative. Like that's
pretty handy. That's surprisingly powerful.
Yeah,
it is. It definitely gives you something to put on the field that is now a target for me if I can get to it. I will have to waste. I will either have to suck up all the special abilities Josh gets, or I will have to waste resources hunting that sucker down.
So what you're telling me is that I should always take a couple heavy airstrikes just to make sure we kill those things.
I mean, that is
not a bad idea.
That is a tactic.
All right, good.
I do want to add, I like the Mobile HQ. I really liked the turret emplacements, and we get a lot of cards for those. And
The
a lot of
problem I
tokens.
had with that is that -4 to hit. So as long as I'm in range, I can hit it with stuff. I never did because I didn't feel it was enough of a threat against my hardened armor mech at the time. But I can see if you had a couple of those placed around, again, it's something I have to be careful of.
My choice was, do I want like 3 turrets or 1 turret and a mobile HQ? And I enjoyed the
You did
mobile
the right
HQ.
thing. That mobile HQ was fantastic.
But I could definitely see the ability to, like, there are rules, like you can put these 6 hexes up, and I was like, oh man, I can put these on like a hill, and they have good range. Like the light one has LRM range. I was like,
Oh, wow.
this is great for 10 damage on 1 roll. I was like, I like this a lot. Like I've always wanted to take turrets as an actual option in my army. Like battlefield engineers just plop down turrets. I was like, yes, finally. Easy,
Well, especially with
total warfare rules for turrets.
Especially with
That's
their
good.
prevalence in the HBS BattleTech game,
Right.
I mean, you're fighting so many turrets all the time. People want to replicate those, and they want to see those on the table. That's awesome.
And it feels similar because they're easy to hit, but you have to do enough damage to blow them up. And if you don't, there's still a problem out there.
Yeah.
So
Brutal.
Yeah.
Josh, what's your favorite strike?
I don't like the strikes. I'm an asset person. I'm an asset person, boys. What's the word I'm looking for? I do want to touch on, because Dennis has been using the word vehicles a lot, almost more than what I like to think. Because
I
like
know.
half of these assets are not vehicles.
I need to get used to calling them assets because that's how they're referred to in the book.
Not vehicles, assets.
They are assets because they cover a wide variety of things like
Battle
Hover
armor.
tanks,
infantry.
tracked vehicles,
No,
wheeled
no.
vehicles.
Stop it. Yeah, so your battle armor gets converted into an asset. Your infantry gets converted into an asset. Multiple types of infantry. We touched on this. You've got regular foot. You've got jump. You've got motorized. You have MG emplacements. Like, they are an emplacement, but they're an infantry. So, like, they're the worst and best of both worlds.
they also have a facing so that if you get behind them, you can do major damage to those.
Yeah. And what's cool about those, the infantry, was like, all those machine guns on your mechs that you don't use, they still have the anti-infantry effect, essentially. Like I forget the thing. It's like you add to the roll or something.
Right. If you do not destroy them, instead of the check going down by 1, the check goes down by 2. So it does a lot of damage to their integrity.
Yeah.
That's
they
super
disappear
handy.
fast.
No, I mean, that's one thing that I think keeps a lot of people from bringing vehicles and infantry and other things that you would find in Total Warfare. I think, those more niche, less commonly used rules prevent people from doing that. So this looks like a great way to get those things on the table so people can use their models, but not necessarily get bogged down in, huge, long games.
Now, I like them a lot. And I love using those assets except for the battle armor, just because I have used battle armor so much that I like the actual rules of battle armor. I'm never going to say, no, we are definitely only playing Total Warfare battle armor rules, and I will never use a battle armor asset. That is not true. But I like battle armor so much. I like when you can climb on top of an assault mech and ride around and just rip holes in its armor, and you don't get that same feel with the asset version. I would say out of all of them, the battle armor is the one that I would tend to go old school with.
Well, then I'm going to tell you what. When other people have 35 years of experience, they can do the same.
Yeah. I'll play however you want to play. It's okay.
So that looks like it covers the majority of the questions on assets and strikes and all the other good stuff. What else is in here?
So let's say you have a bunch of these, assets and strikes, and you want to use them. And, well, the best way to use them is in that, like, mercenary contract that's also included in the booklet. And it does have one technically, like, campaign, and it's got the opposing and the attacker defender contract. So you've got I don't want to say good guy, bad guy, but it's 2 players, and they're not the same contract. first of all.
Correct. And there is a good guy and a bad guy. It just changes depending on who you're playing as.
Josh, are these contracts like old-timey privateering licenses? I get to do bad stuff as long as it's not to my own employer?
I mean, kind of. They include that in the thing, and it has rules for conduct and what you can and can't do. I mean, the one they include that Denham mentioned on page 25 is technically the pirate fighting contract. And there's not much you can do with a pirate that isn't allowed. But yeah, so let's say, Steve, you open up this book. Do you want to start a mercenary force? Do you want to set out into the great unknown intersphere and fight your way from rags to riches?
It's going to be a real short episode if I say no. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you said no, it's like those choose your own adventure books, and it's like, too bad. You're drafted. Welcome to the Corps.
Welcome aboard.
So I really liked how this started. It was just like kind of assemble your forces, and it's pick 2 mechs totaling 3,000 BV.
1 or 2 mechs.
Every time. I just...
I guess it's important because it is legal to take a Timberwolf A and to put in a 3-4 pilot, and that is technically, according to this, under 3,000 BV.
Because the BV of your pilots does not matter for this campaign.
Correct.
Why? Because they can die.
Oh, no.
As the last 2 episodes have just been like pilots getting murdered, pilots dying, headshot, ejection. Pilots die more than we like.
A little salty here, Josh.
Yeah,
What's
maybe.
going on?
No, I have no idea. But so 3,000 BV is what they call Scale 1, and that's the smallest mercenary force. And I think you described it, Denham, as that is an understrength lance.
Right. So it's the Scale 1, you are taking an understrength lance that is supported by assets to fill it out. So you've got 1 to 2 mechs, and then you've got some assets and strikes, and that's what you've got.
The hanger-ons, anyone can pick up a rifle and march forward. You don't need special Mechwarrior training for that. So it's not about them. The story isn't about them.
Yep, and then Scale 2 is twice that, so it's 6,000 BV, and that assumes that you've got a lance of mechs, and then Scale 3 assumes that you've got a reinforced lance of mechs with more asset support as well.
So what did you think about because as soon as you start a mercenary chaos campaign, you get to give a pilot some upgrades for free, because it's a little rough out there. Your main characters should be a little bit better than the average.
Yeah, they're the heroes that start the group. So yeah, they are better than average for sure.
So you get 2 pilot upgrades, and you can't use it on the same skill, but you can
not on the same skill, but you can use it on the same pilot.
Yeah. So you can make two 3-5 pilots, or a 4-4 and then a 3-5. So, but you can't make a 2-5.
Correct. That is correct.
Let's get real. Makes sense.
It does make sense. It's a bummer because a 2-5 pilot in a Timberwolf A would just wreck so many things.
We wouldn't be enjoying this podcast right now if that's what happened.
That is true.
But yeah, so now we have our force. Now we have to look for jobs, because the job market out there, the economy's in shambles.
Shambles, I tell you.
So this is where my knowledge started to okay, I've done the easy part. I've built the force. But what's in a contract? Well, it's not a whole lot, right, Denham? Right?
It's not. The contract is pretty easy. There's
5 pieces to it. You have your base pay, which is like
how much you get paid.
Yeah, it's literally like your employer. You get paid at the end of the month, once per month. I was like, okay. Don't love it, but I can't go bi-weekly.
But that's important because you have to pay maintenance out of your own pocket every month, because running a mercenary unit is expensive. You have to feed these people. You have to pay healthcare. You gotta polish those actuators.
Denham, you're using a lot of have-tos. Do you really have to?
You cannot.
You don't. And we'll get into that. You don't. But you should. No, actually, for maintenance, you do. You have to pay the $500.
I was literally about to say, maintenance is the one thing you cannot get out of.
Yeah, that is. So yes, you have to.
So
Yes.
food is optional. Armor plating, not so much. All right.
Yes.
Command rights is the next one, and that is how likely your employer screws you over. Is your boss good or bad? Let's get real. They're all pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, you can be independent, which is like the ideal where you are in charge of your mercenary unit, all the way to integrated, which is you are really part of this other force and you have to deal not just with your liaison, but also his supervisor and that person's supervisor. You're going to have communication breakdowns, you're going to have problems, and that is indicated by certain roles when you go to start a mission.
Oh, so that changes per mission, not necessarily when you do the contract.
Correct. Well, the contract, you can't once you set your contract, it is locked in for the entire however long the contract goes. So that gives you a modifier to a role at the beginning of each mission, though.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
So we go on these missions and we kill the bad guys, or we hold the fort, or whatever we're supposed to do. Maybe it's not. Battletech is so violent. Maybe we're just supposed to guard this field of nice flowers or something. And we succeed in doing that. I get paid the base pay, but that's nice. That just keeps bills paid. But what I want is new stuff. How do I get new stuff? Can I negotiate for salvage?
Well, that's the third part of the contract, which is the necromonger way, which is you keep what you kill, but only if you negotiated that you literally keep what you kill. If not, the employer takes what you killed. They keep it, not you.
Yeah, because this contract is like anything that's left on the battlefield is theirs, unless they're nice enough to let you have some of it. So yeah.
Do you want some of the pie or none of the pie?
Ooh, what kind of pie?
Spider pie?
And this can go pretty, like, the details on this, like for the salvage, you either get none, so all of it belongs to your employer. You have no claim on anything left on the battlefield. You can have exchange, which means that if there is stuff on the battlefield, the person who owns your contract will give you a certain percentage of that, but you have to use it to repair and rearm your mech. If it is not used for that, then whatever's left over is gone. And then everything else is just a percentage of this salvage is worth this much. How much percentage do you get to have as SP with the option to pay off the rest of it and own that piece of equipment that you're salvaging?
So you can, in fact, grow your ranks with additional units if you take enough salvage.
Absolutely, you can.
Fantastic.
Instead of ransoming the Mechwarriors you capture, just hire them.
That's true. You could do that too.
I'll pay you double what your previous employer did.
But I don't want to pay these people.
I know.
I want the money. Give me that cold.
It's a one-time
cash.
fee. It's a one-time fee. How about that?
That's not too bad.
All
right.
So
we do salvage. What's next?
Well, as we all have to fill out once a year, our insurance. And that's technically the support. But really, it's insurance. It's medical insurance for your pilots, as well as repair insurance for your deductibles for your mechs.
Yeah.
Pesky life insurance payouts for the families.
So this one also has certain tiers. One is, of course, none, where they're like, we don't care. You broke it. That's up to you. So you can use whatever we paid you for these missions to take care of that. And then they have what's called straight with a percentage, which means that if your mech got broken but not destroyed, they will pay a percentage of the repair costs or your health bills, but not to replace it, just to repair it. So you still have to use your own thing. And that goes from 20% up to 100%. 100% is awesome because it means that however much you need repaired, they will pay for it all, which is fantastic. Unless your mech is completely destroyed, which happens if you lose all of the center torso internal structure on your mech, then it is truly destroyed. There is no repairing that. That's just gone. It's gone. But if you keep putting points into support rights and you get it up into what's called battle, and there's percentages of there, what battle means is that you get straight 100. So it will pay for all of your repairs 100%. But if a mech gets truly destroyed or one of your pilots gets killed, they will pay a percentage of replacing that mech with a same model and make mech or hiring a new person. So it just costs you a little bit less. So it's like life insurance.
If you total your car, you get the what's that called?
The payout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really meant to use your mech until it gets destroyed. When it's crippled, that's the time to start saying, I'm just going to walk back off of my edge of the map, and I'm only going to have to, because they'll cover that, because I've got straight support rights. They'll cover my repairs, but if my mech gets blown up, I've lost it. But if you've got battle support, then yeah, you might want to push it a little bit further, because they will replace part of it.
Interesting. And I just... Maybe I missed this portion. Maybe we covered it earlier and I wasn't paying attention. You determine these by rolls? You just randomly roll these elements, or do you have to pick them?
No. Each contract has these as a preset type thing. So you look at it, and like the contracts we've got are the Great Eagle Garrison is one side, and the Pearl Dragon Raid is the other side. So they're two opposing contracts, which means they're two independent contracts. They just happen to be dealing with the same world, because conflict is what's important here. If you have a contract and nobody's coming after you, that was fun. You don't ever want to have a garrison that they're playing at the store saying, well, I'm a garrison, but nobody attacked my planet this month, so I'm just here collecting my pay.
I mean, that's how it, let's get real. The Battletech books would be boring if they covered the 99% of the time.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing? Garrisoning this world. Oh, it's so nice. Nobody's shooting at me. It's wonderful.
We're here to tell stories. So, unlike the Great Eagle Garrison, it tells you, it is a garrison. It is 3 months. The base pay is 100%. Support is 0%. Transportation is 100%. Salvage rights are 50%, and the command rights are liaison. So it tells you what your contract is going to be. You start off as a Reputation 1 mercenary unit, and your reputation can go up or down. You can use those reputation points as free bumps. So you've got a contract steps table, and you can actually go up and down on that table to make your contract better. So like I said, you could use your reputation points to bump up things up to like a scale 1. You can only do that twice. That doesn't matter what your reputation is. You can go up to twice on that. But you can also, very much like the video games that we play, lower some other ones to then raise other columns. And that's at a 2-to-1 ratio. So we'll get into it as we go. But my salvage rates started at 70%, and I lowered those down 4 steps. Like I lowered it down to 30 to increase my base pay up a couple more steps. So I was getting, like I said, maintenance is always 500. If they pay 100% of that, they also pay you 500 every month for maintenance. It's a wash. There's your maintenance, your base pay.
You're not making money.
But you're not losing money either.
Yeah.
You can go down to only get like 50% base pay, and then you got to pay half of these maintenance costs out of pocket. I happen to bump mine up to 130%. So every time the maintenance came around, I would collect 650 SP. I'd pay out 500, and that would leave me with 150 extra on top of everything,
which is not bad.
And that's not bad. I negotiated in my contract.
I did a worse job negotiating. I was just like, "Hey, insurance company, will you pay for some repairs?" And they were like, "Sure, why not? We'll give you the minimum coverage."
So this packet only comes with the Pearl Dragon and the Great Eagle. Are we expecting to see more of these, pre-made contracts coming out soon?
I can confidently say that yes, there are definitely books that are going to be put out at some point that are just books of they're like the hotspots books type of things.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I know the big ones that have been mentioned by NC Kestrel on like Reddit and the Catalyst forums are the Hinterlands book and what's the other one? The Mercenaries Handbook. So those are like the two major big ones. And I know there's one other one that I can't remember right now.
The Hinterlands should be out anytime, probably before I get my stuff from the Kickstarter. But that's a great one because it covers like Jade Falcon and the Lyran Commonwealth, things. There's a group up there called the Hinterlands. It's in contention in the 150s.
So the Hinterlands will have contracts that are specific to this area of space.
And it may be later in this packet as well. Does it have guidelines for making your own contracts?
I can't imagine that there would not be.
I would hope to see some sort of guidelines to say this is a balanced contract, as opposed to you start at 200% base pay and full battle coverage. And, you obviously don't want to do that, but
If
I'd
I
love to see
remember,
some sort of guideline.
Someone asked NC Kestrel, and he said this follows very closely the campaign operations steps for making a contract. So there is pre-existing rules to support this. This is just the super condensed all in one place version of it.
Yep.
Like they did not reinvent rules for this, but they collected and got
refined
and made the relevant rules its own product.
It is heavily based on the chaos campaign stuff. It's just better. It just flows better.
Yeah, this tastes better.
It does.
The ingredients have been there in the kitchen, but they finally cooked a very tasty meal.
So this is the high fructose corn syrup of chaos campaigns.
I mean, yeah, I could say that. All right, so we're going to go through the steps of the contract. Why? Because one of us in this podcast struggled because we only read the highlighted words.
And one of us read the whole book, so we got a little bit more substance.
Yeah. But were these steps of the contract hard to follow? But
I would say figuring out what support rights, like what straight and battle meant on that, and then what the exchange meant on salvage rights, that was a little bit. I wanted to make sure I had exactly what those rules were, so that I knew how much I needed to put in per contract. But no, I think the actual negotiation of the contracts, I knew what I wanted. So that part was fun. It was fun. It really brought back memories of MechWarrior 5, when you're starting up a contract and you've got all the little colored boxes and you're doing the minus and the plus on the different things to tweak it however you wanted it. And Steve, just so you know, as you go up in scale and reputation, you are giving more opportunities to modify that contract. So it doesn't matter if a contract starts off pretty bad. The higher level you are, the better you can make it without having to do any negatives on them.
So, you get a little bit of pull, right? I'm the Great Death Legion. You know who I am. You know what I can do. As such, I get to dictate more terms of this contract, and you accept them.
Of course you're the Great Death Legion. Your models are unpainted.
Whoa. All right. Didn't know it was going to be that kind of podcast tonight.
So let's go through the steps real quick, and we're going to answer essentially the questions that we had on the air, because you probably have this if you're reading the Mercenaries box set. So step 1, we negotiated the contract. Like I said, I negotiated only to use my reputation to bump up support, because I knew I was fighting Denim, so I'm going to lose a bunch. So I want my insurance to help me. And Denim, you did essentially dumped salvage for base pay.
I did. There's probably going to be some mechs out there to salvage, but we're starting so early. Like, we've only got the 2 mechs. I'm going to bump up my base pay and just make sure, because I'm getting paid 4 times during this contract, and I need to make up for my travel, because they shafted me on travel.
Yeah, mine covered it, and I was like, oh, travel's only once, but base pay is monthly.
Every month.
Yeah. So I don't want to say base pay was obviously like, hey, you do kind of just want bumped up base pay. But
I did a lot of math, and I can tell you where that does and does not work for sure.
I believe it. All right. So we did our negotiating for that. Transportation. I had to technically transport, but mine was fully funded because I was Great Eagle.
I don't know if we mentioned that, but just like your maintenance costs you 500 SP every month, traveling takes 1 month and costs 300 SP at scale 1. So that's something you just have to pay.
Travel times actually matter now.
Yeah.
Travel times do matter, yes.
Well, that's
there's the easy way to do it, which they just say, oh, it costs you 300 SP and it takes a month. Or there is an optional rule in there that says you can actually calculate how long the trip is, how many jumps you take, and you divide that number to get exactly how many months you spent traveling, in which case you do have to pay that amount of money. If you do it the long way, you do have to pay that amount of money, but for each month, your contract is required to pay you the transportation fee. So if you get shafted like I did, where they cover 0%, every single month I would have to pay an additional 300 SP to, just for travel costs, because jump ships aren't cheap. They're not.
And you're not planning on owning those as your, 2-mech mercenary company.
So, right, for example, like my base pay, like I said, was 130, 130%. So every time that I got paid per month, I would get paid 650 and I'd pay out 500, which would leave me with 150. But my transportation cost me 300. So that would take 2 months of that to even make that even. So it's not like, if I have to travel a lot, base pay is not where I want to be putting my money into, because eventually I'm going to I'm going to lose money on that. But if I'm already on planet, then who cares about that? Let's bump up the base pay.
So if you're a garrison force, pump up your base pay. If you're a raiding force, bump up insurance. Noted.
But yeah, so it's funny because like as soon as you start out, like I've just gotten on the dropship, I'm traveling, I immediately have to pay maintenance. I was like, wait, we couldn't have done the oil change before we left home. I wrote here, it's like maintenance is due on the 1st of the month. I was like, it's essentially your rent. I was like, oh. Yeah, and that's based on scale, like we mentioned. So it's scale 1, it's 500 SP. So yeah, so by this point, I've paid my maintenance. You've paid your maintenance.
Yes.
And then we get paid, technically. That's when our employer's check clears.
Right. So they also pay us on the 1st of the month.
They pay us, and the landlord just takes that, says,
right,
new actuators don't pay for themselves.
Right, because our maintenance isn't going to our employer. Our maintenance is going to everyone else that we're dealing with. Because we have to pay maintenance whether or not. Because if you're playing this as part of a campaign structure, you don't always have a contract. Sometimes you're waiting for a better contract, which I believe this is covered in things like that Hinterlands books that would be coming out. And you might want to say, I don't like any of these contract options that I see this month. I'm going to wait an additional month and see if something better pops up, which means that you're stuck paying the maintenance on your own units.
Yeah,
like
you got to have
zero
a couple
base
of
pay.
fat pads to make sure you can make it a month or two, so you don't have to take some garbage so you don't have to take some garbage contract.
Yeah. Now, luckily, everybody starts off with 3,000 SP in the bank. So you're not starting off at 0.
I'm going to guess that doesn't go as far as it sounds like it should.
It went actually further than I thought, and we'll cover that later. But no, it will not last forever.
All right. So we've gotten paid. This is when the fight actually happens. Not fight over money, but this is where the tracks, they call them, start. And that's the actual fights between the two players.
Right. So once we're on planet, we're doing our tracks. We roll to see what our mission is going to be. And that mission determines like who is the attacker, who is the defender. For example, I think we rolled a meeting engagement for our first one, correct?
You can't get away from it. I hate it, but it's just always right there.
It just happened to be the first thing we rolled. And on that one, the Great Eagle was the attacker and the defender was Pearl Dragon. But it doesn't really matter for a meeting engagement. It's just like you have to know, but there are no other objectives on there. So we rolled for that. And when we rolled for that, we also then have to roll on the map sheet table. And because we're on a scale 1, we're only rolling 1 map because we've only got up to 2 mechs and some assets. So we don't need a big map, which was great because this game took less than 2 hours
if that,
to play?
like 90 minutes. The actual game took like 90 minutes. The contract, math took the other hour and a half. So it's you can't get away from it whether you want to or not.
Right. But then right before we start it, we have to roll our command complications table. And actually this does come after we look at the map. So we see the map, we know what the mission is. We then use our BSP because we both start off with 32 BSP points. We were talking about that, Steve. Except if you are under the 3,000 battle value limit, then you take however much is left over, like you subtract your mech's battle value from it, not including the pilots because they don't matter, just the mechs. And then you divide that number by 20, and that's how many additional BSPs that you get to add to your 32. So you have 32, and you can get up to 32 more.
Very neat.
If you happen to be like way under and You divide your total by 20 and you have more than 32, it's cut off at 32. You don't have more than 64 on a scale 1.
So in the event that you lose a mech, you're not totally undergunned because you can just bring more support.
You can bring more support. Yes, that is also correct.
It's a neat
So after
factor.
all that, and you've picked out your battlefield support, and you've got all your cards and mechs and vehicles, then we get to roll on the command complications table, and that's what is modified by your command. Like, are you a liaison? Are you a house command rights integrated? Or are you completely independent? Independent, you don't get any bonuses or negatives for that. So it's great because a lot of times you're just no complication. But the worse you get it, you can get up to 7 or 8 on this. Like 8 is normally roll twice and apply both effects. And there are things like the employer's command has a leak and the raiders are prepared to face the mercenaries. 2 additional galleon tanks are in the opposing force. Your opponent just gets 2 free tanks.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it says you get 2 free galleons. I don't have the card in front of me, but that's probably 30 supply points. So total.
No. Galleon is 13 supply points. It's
Okay,
it's not an expensive one.
That's 26 supply points. That's 26 supply points for free on the other side. That's not insignificant.
26 supply points. You are correct. So it's not nothing. That's for sure. And it's because you're dealing with bureaucracy because it's never smooth or easy. That's the thing. But there's a whole list of things, and they're fun. So that happens at the beginning of the mission, and each player rolls. So I could also end up with 2 galleons. Who knows?
I will say for all of my games, I rolled and it never came into effect, which is probably the best case scenario. Not like, oh, this isn't fun, but oh, I don't want super negatives right now while I'm just starting out.
The one I'm doing with Caitlin, we definitely she got 2 additional tanks. It's not great. It's painful.
That's not
it's
great.
painful. But then we play BattleTech. Finally, after how long have we been doing this? Finally, we get to roll some dice.
Oh, terrible. So how'd your game 1 go? I know we kind of touched on it, but we'll do the quick highlight.
Yeah, so I had a chameleon and a firefly. My firefly was the jumpy boy that goes 8. Chameleon goes 6, 9, 6. I had a plan. We had the map was lake area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it had the big lake in the middle. So I looked at that and I'm like, oh, I'm picking hover tanks for my BSPs because they don't care. They don't care about the water. They'll go all over that. And that worked out really, really well. What didn't work out well was when I jumped my Firefly over to flank him. And Josh is like, oh, I've got a PPC in your rear. I need a 10 or 11, something like that. Whatever you needed, you rolled an 11.
Mm-hmm.
And on turn 2, double crit to the gyro. My Firefly just dropped. But was not crippled because 2 gyro hits don't cripple you. Yay. So he was forced to spend time and shots actually trying to cripple that mech. And I believe you ended up just destroying it.
Yeah,
like you cored the whole center torso, and nobody got anything from that because it wasn't repairable, it wasn't salvageable.
It was
and neither
truly
of us,
destroyed.
Yeah, neither of us had battle support rights, so I just had to write it off. There's a whole mech just gone. Pilot's fine.
Fresh out the
Yeah.
the
Pilot's fine. The mech is just first mission, just gone. So then it was just, and that was your Vindicator that did that, right? Yeah, because you had the Vindicator and the Huron Warrior.
Yeah, I decided to take non-box set mechs for the first one, but that's okay. But and then
I like Huron Warriors. They're good mechs.
Yeah, your other mech, I got 1 internal damage on the head. So
right, you did 10 points of damage to the head, which rolled the crit, got the sensors.
Yeah.
So that's a +2, not crippled, but 2 sensor hits are crippled. But that was a bad day. Now you had a heavy tank that you came out with, and I focus fired on that and destroyed it turn 1.
Yeah, I think I took a Manticore out, and it just the first roll just destroyed it, which is how the assets worked.
Yep. So I had 3 hover tanks, I think, going around, and they were annoying. They definitely did a little bit of damage, and were. But I believe that game ended with my, I I think it was even my tank that finally got the hit that put your Huron warrior into officially crippled. So since the objective of this game was the first person to cripple or destroy 50% of the opposing force, the Huron warrior was more than 50% of your BV. The Firefly was definitely not 50% of my BV. You needed to destroy either all three tanks. Yeah. The Firefly and all three tanks, or my Chameleon and two of the tanks. So
this was one of the parts where we actually had to ask questions.
Yes.
Because I had to, 50% of what? And they were like,
right.
Asking CGL the questions, and it's, okay, it can mean numbers or BV. In this case, we would probably say BV. I was like, okay. And
they said that the intent was BV, but if it's our game, it's whatever we decide we wanted to do it as, and it would not have been fair to do it with anything other than BV.
Yeah, because it's like, I've killed 3 hover tanks. It's like, that's 50% of your units. That's no, don't do that. So
technically, like with the Huron warrior in forced withdraw, and my mech not, I could have pressed the issue and said, well, you have to make it off the map now. Like, you have to. But I had a sensors hit, so my gunnery, like, I had armor everywhere except for the head. I was in great shape, but I had a +2 to hit, plus I was a jumpy boy, so that's like really a +5 to hit if I was to try and be mobile. And I'm like, you just take your Huron, your mechs and go. Just go home. And I had to go pick up my pilot and bring him back without a mech. So I was down a mech, but I won that mission.
Yeah, and I lost. I did not do the objective, which was kill 50%. So
yeah.
So I have a question, if I may.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
You bring BSP on the table. You bring assets. You've got your hover tanks. They survived. Do you get those BSPs back into your pool, or are they spent permanently?
Well, that's just it. Is what I'm saying. That the BSPs are refreshed every track. So the vehicles, whether you bring them back or not, like, you're using them that mission. And then the next mission for our next track, you don't get to bring back the vehicles that you had. You don't care about them. You put them back in the garage or wherever. You bring out 32 BSPs worth of stuff again. Like, you don't keep track of the assets at all.
Between games. Like,
between games.
You only worry about how many assets I want to spend my money on that game. And the pool is infinite. It's as many assets as you want. You're essentially renting them for the battle. You don't own them. That's the best way to think about it. You are renting them for that battle.
Or your mercenary unit might just have a bunch of vehicles, but they're not the focus of this game. The battle mechs are. So you're just like, of course I've got some vehicles. Whatever they are, I've got those. Yes, but I'm worried about the mechs. The mechs are how I live and die. They're the money makers, the talent. So then, at the end of that, if you get paid a multiplier of your base pay depending on how well you did in the mission, which is another place.
Pay, a whole nother keyword.
Yeah. So combat pay is your base pay with a multiplier. So my base pay is 650 SP. Josh's base pay is 500.
And we negotiated that. That's part of the negotiation.
Part of the contract negotiation. And then since he lost, he
only earns half. So I earn 250 support points.
I'm going to point out that on the sheet that comes in the box, that there is a typo. It says no objectives, lost units. You get 0. That is not the case. You get half. The only way you get 0 is if you break the contract, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, if you lose, you always get paid half of your base pay.
I did all my objectives, so I got 150% base pay. So I got paid 975 for that mission. But I lost a Firefly. It was gone forever. Yeah. Truly gone.
So then we earn reputation. Winner gets 1 reputation. Loser gets -1 reputation. So at this point, I was at 0 because I used my reputation for the contract. So I'm at -1 currently.
Well, you don't spend the reputation when you negotiate the contract. So you were at 1 reputation. So you were able to negotiate your contract.
Oh, I read it the other way then.
Yeah, but you didn't spend it, but you got another reputation if you won, and if you lose, you lose 1.
Mm-hmm.
So
now
you
I'm
went
at
from
0.
1 to 0, and I went from 1 to 2.
Okay. And then this is where we would earn salvage if you wanted to.
Right. So if that Firefly was not dead, it is salvage on the map, but it was gone. So I got nothing for that. It's just gone. And none of Josh's mechs were left on the field. They were both able to walk off under their own power. So I did not get any salvage for them either. And assets, you don't care about that. Like that, they don't come into effect for salvage or anything at all. But at the end of that track, so this particular contract has a track every month, and it's a 3-month contract. At the end of each month, we can roll on the marketplace table to see if any mechs are in the area for sale, just like in MechWarrior 5.
It's a hard roll. It's an 8 up, at least for this one.
This one, it was a 7 up for 1 mech, 11 up for 2 mechs for sale. And we both only got 1 on that list.
Yeah. What did you get?
Oh man, I rolled a 4, so I had the opportunity to buy a Caesar 5R, which is the one with the Gauss rifle, the snub-nose PPC, and the hardened armor. And that was 1400 SP, but coming off of that win where I got 975, I'm like, I'll go a little bit low. I am buying that.
Yeah.
So I picked that up instantly.
And I rolled, and I had the option of buying the Flea. And I was like, well, one of my mechs is technically in the shop. I should buy a Flea. So had to buy a Flea, and then I had to buy a pilot for it. So doing all my math for game 1 with technically I bumped up support for 20% repairs and insurance. I was at 3070. Considering I started at 3,000, I've lost a game and made money, which is the most you can hope for. So before purchasing the mech and the Mechwarrior, I'm at 3070. So I say buying a Flea, that's fine. So that takes me down to 2570 for now. I have 3 mechs, and one of them's technically in the shop. And
right. We were assuming that all 3 of these missions were going to be done in the same month, which meant that you couldn't really do repairs or heal Mechwarriors in between the tracks, because sometimes that may happen. But these were actually on different months. So your options were to pay 30 SP to heal your Mechwarrior, or just bring them into the next mission with one hit, with 1 pilot hit already. But that's not how we played it. So yeah, that was the end of track 1.
Yeah,
that was a mission.
So then, what do? We do it again. We do.
Yeah, we do.
Because
the same night.
No.
This was like 2 weeks later, I think, is when we got the next one done. So yeah, it was so
we go back
last week.
Yeah, so we go back, and we don't renegotiate the contract. Contract's locked in. Can't renegotiate.
Contract is locked in.
We don't have to pay transportation. We're already there. We do have to do maintenance. So
for you, that's a flat. Like, you get 500, you spend 500.
Yeah, the base pay doesn't come in for me. So
whereas I get 500, I get 650, and I spend 500, so that's another 150 SP. At this point, because I bought that Caesar, I'm at 2575 SP. So I'm actually down like almost 500 SP.
So we're pretty much the same. Yeah. You lost more SP in the battle, but you gained more for winning.
Yes, that's true. I did a lot.
Yeah. So we get paid.
So
again.
This one we get paid again. We didn't realize we could do repairs at this point, which we could have done. I could have repaired my Chameleon. I didn't realize that, but I had the Caesar, so I was going to go out with just 1 mech this time. It was the Caesar, so I was going to have extra BSP. I maxed that out at 64, and I think I was still under where Josh was, just because I could only take 1 mech. And I didn't think about doing what Josh did.
So because my options were not great, I had a Vindicator with only like 3 weapons and a Flea. I said, oh, this contract allows me to hire a subcontractor mercenary. And this is the Ostal And I was like, you know what? For 50 SP, I'll do that. So I'm taking my Vindicator and a subcontractor mercenary. And it was technically, this one is like, if you cannot field more than 2,000 BV, I was like, I'm not fielding a flea. Like, I will lie on my tax forms for that.
So yeah, I was going to say technically he could field the 2,000, but he chose not to.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, Josh. You mentioned that the Huron Warrior was crippled and in the shop for repairs. Does it lay out how long those repairs take? Is it just 1 month?
Yes, it's 1 month.
So you had the option, if you'd known about it, to, at the end of the first mission, state that you were repairing the Huron Warrior and then bring it on this mission, correct?
Yeah, correct.
But we read
so
it
that was
wrong. Because it was,
okay, I
it
was
was
like,
not 100%
wait,
clear.
That's exactly why we were doing this, is to go through all of this so that all these questions would be answered.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that was a mistake that got made and not an element of the game where a mech is out every other mission or something like that.
There are tracks in some of the other things that I know about that you have to do like 2 or 3 missions in 1 month.
Right.
They
so you
aren't
don't
as
have
common.
that opportunity.
It's a rare thing, but it does happen. It mentioned it in this book. It
This
said
is a low intensity combat.
Yes. So there are contracts that require you to do multiple missions in multiple tracks in a month. This was not one of those.
Got it.
Okay. And in which case, that pilot that's being healed or that mech that's being repaired are not available for any other tracks in that same month.
Okay. Now, Josh, you mentioned you hired a subcontractor. So you just get another mech that's not your mech?
Yes.
Correct. But I don't have any choice in like who they are, what their piloting skills are, what abilities they have. It is specific to this, like, I don't want to say contract.
This one was. This one was
but it's
very
like
specific.
I want to say more like campaign. Like, this is a mercenary at the local hiring hall that has a mech and is willing to, for one battle, do this. They require 50 SP up front, and if they win, they get another 50 SP. So I was like, for 100 SP, that's pretty good considering one of my mechs getting crippled costs more than that.
Right. Are there penalties if the subcontractor bites it?
Not for this one. Not for this
so
one.
They're just meat for the grinder.
Yeah.
That's right.
They get their 50 SP up front, and whatever happens, happens.
So this next one was a strike. We rolled a strike, and then we rolled Scattered Woods, or maybe it was Woodland. I don't know. It was another map that had a river going through it, a bunch of trees, and a mountain on one end of it. And that mountain had a mobile headquarters hiding behind it, and a turret on it
to protect the mobile HQ.
Yeah. You put out 4 buildings, and one of them was a headquarters, and I had to go in and figure out which one it is and destroy it.
Correct.
So I took more vehicles because I only had one mech. So I needed vehicles out there to scan buildings. I just needed that. So that's what I did for my BSP stuff. I just maxed it all out on 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, I guess maybe this is inherent in the system, but if the Huron Warrior hadn't been crippled but still had taken damage, at this point you guys didn't know you could repair your mechs. Would you have been able to field one that was already damaged or wounded?
You can. I don't think you can bring one out that's crippled because a lot of the win conditions are crippling your opponent's mechs. You would come out already adding to that.
Right, but if it had been crippled, or maybe its right arm was gone or something, you could feel the mech missing a right arm.
You can. Okay. In fact, if you repair armor, like just armor, which is way cheaper, it will repair all the armor on the mech except for places that have internal structure damaged. So you could actually repair most of it. But say you've got, the Shadowhawk with the left arm with nothing in it, and that arm got mangled. Yeah, you go out there with a one-armed Shadowhawk. That's totally fine. In the book, it says it very legal.
Good. Okay. Sorry. Intrusive questions before we lose them. So continue, please.
So game 2, this one was
the one where
bloody. This was fast and it was bloody.
It was fast, and I lost initiative a lot, but it's because of that mobile HQ. It was good.
It paid for itself. Unfortunately, it didn't win me the game. I think I was able to kill all of your vehicles.
Yeah, pretty fast.
I was able to prevent you from scanning for my objective.
That is true. That is true. I just started shooting buildings, hoping that I would destroy.
But the mission said
The
scan
headquarters.
and destroy, so technically you can't report back to your employer that you killed the issue. You don't know.
I destroyed all buildings because once I destroy all your units, then I have free reign and the field is mine. So I just destroyed all the buildings. So yes, the headquarters was definitely destroyed.
And the orphanage.
Yeah. Not my orphanage.
But in this game,
fun part about that game,
yeah,
right, was because there's that river in there, and I stood with my back to the river, and you decided you were going to push me into the river because I have hardened armor. My PSRs are going to be crap because I have a 3.5 pilot.
It was my hope. It was my.
That was your hope. But a Gauss rifle, a snub-nosed PPC, and it didn't matter. Just the Gauss rifle because that I was using some Motor City Mayhem dice from Steve here that he sent me, and when it counted, came through for me. So thank you, bud.
Yep,
double sixes.
I jumped my Vindicator right in front of the Caesar, tried to push. Before I could even push, he just puts a Gauss rifle through my head. That's when I roll Skin of the Teeth ejection. I slam into the heavy woods right behind me because I'm unconscious. It's an autopilot hit. He needed an 11. He didn't get it. He was dead on impact.
Well, at least you didn't make that one a 3-4 before that happened.
Yeah, that would have been bad. I do technically try to use my subcontractor Ostol to get some internal damage on the Caesar because I was like, well, if I'm going down, I'm at least making you pay for it.
Yeah, you messed up my right arm. That cost me money for sure.
So that was the only goal. Unfortunately, he had also destroyed him. Didn't truly destroy him, just destroyed.
Right, engine kill.
Yeah. So the Innersphere XL actually, I want to say, saves you now, because if the right torso or left torso gets destroyed, it's not mech destroyed, it's just destroyed and it cost money.
But if you didn't have the XL, then you would be crippled at that point, and it would be even cheaper to repair.
Okay.
Yeah. So and if you're crippled, you have a chance of getting off, where that mech did not. That mech was on the battlefield. That mech was up for salvage, which I of course had lowered on my contract.
It's got no damage, just head. It's like, just like game 1 for Denim, except his shot was a little stronger.
It was more precise.
So then we started to do the post-game math for this one. Thankfully, I only had to pay for my Vindicator getting shot until Denim reminded me.
Wait a minute. Because you were like, oh, look, my Vindicator cost me $225 to repair, and I get 225 because that's my half pay. And I said, $250, sure. She said that's my half pay, so it's a wash. And I said, you repaired what? He's like, my Vindicator. I'm like, whose Vindicator? Because as we know, if I control the field and it's on the ground, I get to claim it as salvage. So my employer paid me 30% of its worth, and I decided that I was going to pay the extra 70% and actually own and repair that mech and just add it to my roster. I didn't have to hose anything out because there was just no cockpit. I just had to order a brand new one. That cost me a little bit, but that added a Vindicator 4L to my roster, which that kind of makes up for the Firefly.
Yeah. Lost my pilot. Lost my mech, lost my game.
Yeah.
But at least I got paid technically combat pay for trying. This is like the participation award for your employer. So I did go from $25.70 to $28.20 because I technically didn't have to pay for anything except I will have to get a replacement pilot and mech eventually. So, yeah.
Because you've got 2 mechs right now and 1 pilot. Is that correct? Or did you hire a new one?
I hired a new one. So
okay, so you got 2. Yeah,
but I have less better pilot and less better mech than I started with.
True,
but I'm not as in the hole as one would think after losing a Huron warrior.
So that was month 2. So we had to pay for the maintenance again. We got paid for the combat pay. I salvaged the Vindicator, and that was it for month 2. Month 3 is where it got interesting because according to the book, we do one track a month unless somebody wins
Two in a row.
like the 2 in a row, and then it says that side just surrenders. But since the contractor's for 3 months, we still get paid for that third month. And I use that time on my sheet to mark down. First of all, I got maintenance, so another 150 SP. I trained both of my Mechwarriors, since we're basically done with this, up to 3/4s, so that was another 50 SP each. And then I had a bunch of repairs and wounds because both of my pilots had a head hit. My Chameleon needed armor and internal structure. My Caesar needed armor and internal structure. And the Vindicator cost me a lot to repair after I salvaged it. I went ahead and repaired everything just to see what the numbers would be. And it was funny to me because it brought me right back to 3,000 SP, which is exactly what I started with. So after all of that, no Firefly, but it ended up with a Chameleon, a Caesar, and a Vindicator, and 2, 3, 4 pilots, and another reputation. So my reputation is a 3 now because I won 2 missions, and I started off with 1. And I have not lost a single SP from my starting war chest. Because of how contracts work, what I had thought about doing, because I added up how much it cost me to repair my mechs and heal my pilots, and it was like 400 and something SP. Instead of doing any of that, I could have gotten another contract that actually had a good repair clause in it, and just used that percentage to repair it and save me a little bit of extra money on my way to the next mission.
But we'll save
there's
that.
No guarantee.
Yeah, we'll save that for after the box set next product.
Exactly, because that's why I went ahead and did it all anyways, because who knows what my next contract would have been. So I would have probably ended up having to pay that out of pocket anyway. And it was just funny that it came out to 3,000.
Yeah. So you traded up technically. You lost your light mech and got, a medium.
But I traded everything else up.
And I traded down for a flea and a worse pilot.
They're fast though.
Yeah. So Steve, because you have not participated in a Mercenaries Chaos campaign, are there any questions that you want answered right now before you start one?
I guess right now, we start with a contract and we roll it all up. And in something like this, you're playing the Great Eagle. He's playing Pearl Dragon. Does this automatically lock you in for the length of the contract against each other, 3 months? Or would it be something where, you can play 2 games against Denim and then I show up at the game shop one night and can I bring my own thing? Or do you have to play 3 with Denim before you call that done?
You're supposed to play 3 with each other before you call that one done. If you're trying to use the same mercenary company, you could of course make a separate mercenary company, but you can't, like, if you're a mercenary company under contract, you can only be under one contract. And your opponent is also under contract, and you guys are both on the same planet fighting the same, over the same territory. So therefore, it is intended to be you play it all out before you move on to another contract.
Got it. But then afterwards, you could take your force and your SP and roll up another contract on a different planet and say, I'm going to play Josh for the next 3-4 months. Right.
Or someone else.
Or anyone else. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you go bankrupt? Are there rules in here for just scrapping it? You close up shop, call it a day?
There are. Yep. There are. There's a whole paragraph on it as to what happens. Basically, you retire or have to sell off X amount of resources to get to you where you need to be. And then they're just like, and then just make another mercenary company, start with a fresh name in a new place where nobody knows you. And then you start it all over again.
Yeah. My reputation -1 flea and...
Yeah, no, I was going to say exactly. The reputation -1, you get bonuses for having a higher reputation. If you're negatives, you don't really have any bad things happen. You just can't negotiate your contract as well. Like, you don't get worse things happening to you. You just don't get to make them better until your reputation gets, back up into the positives.
Do you get any leeway with negative reputation? Like, you're known for being cruel and something else? I mean, is there any sort of...
That's all role playing. We do that around the shop for that. But there's no in-game stuff for that.
Anything else?
I don't know. I kind of interjected a lot of my questions as we went through a lot of this. So thank you for entertaining those.
Denim, do you have any questions?
And I just want to play more of these, like so many more of these.
I'm
I
excited.
want the Hinterlands book to come out so I can do more contracts. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
I would say that even watching you lose twice, your starting war chest, your war chest isn't as bad as I feared it would be. I figured, you lose your first contract, you might as well just start over, and that's not the case at all. Like you still have a lot of stuff that you can do with what you've got. You're not out of the game.
Yeah, I am worse off for buying a flea than losing 2 games in a row.
So you're, especially if we paid attention to know how many months there are in a contract. So we would have ended up with different choices in that second game for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, going through all of this and listening to how you guys ran it and how it all worked out, I'm super jazzed. I can't wait to take this to my local game shop. I just need time to do so.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said earlier, I think we spent more time on that first contract than we did playing the actual game. But this is the sort of thing that goes faster and faster. I did, as I mentioned before, make form fillable PDFs, and that makes organizing a lot easier. I take the mercenary contract record sheet and I just make multiple copies, one for each month. I add the travel month into the first one. So that's like month 01. And then I've got one for month 2, one for month 3. And that's just got all of everything that I've done and how much money my war chest goes up and down. That's all on there. So
and then you 3-ring hole punch them, put them in the binder, and put it up on your bookshelf so you can go back and look at the escapades of your mercenary company.
Correct. I even have like a fake rubber stamp that has a completed stamp on it from Photoshop before I print it out if they're totally completed.
Fantastic.
It looks good.
That's fun.
This is how BattleTech was meant to be for me when I started in the 80s. Like this is I feel what they were leading up to, but didn't have they didn't have the resources to do this back then.
To really digest it. They were like, here's campaign operations. And now it's like, okay, here's campaign operations that you can use after a game and then play a second one within the same hour.
This felt really good. This
is the Pedialyte of campaigns. It's, easily digestible, as Josh said, right? It's
right.
Palatable, and it's not overbearing. I mean, I've gone through some of the campaign operation stuff, and I've looked at it, just you start to go, okay, well, that's quite enough of that. Moving on.
It's not super watered down either. Like there's a lot of crunchy in here, but it's the right amount of crunchy. It's like, I was going to make a grape nuts reference, but nobody knows what that is.
I used to love grape nuts denim. My grandfather had
the right
them.
amount of crunchy.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. And honestly, this is
all right. Well, I think that's enough time talking about mercenary contracts. I think we should leave here and start signing up for some new ones with, letting our lawyer look at them first.
So just remember, you can contact us at the Mechbay Podcast at gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook, Discord, and Instagram. And a special thank you, as always, to our Patreons.
Until next time, Mechwarriors, may your contracts be liquid and your enemies salvageable.